Hey, welcome in. The stream is live and we are here. It's just Dubs on a Saturday morning. It's a YouTube only edition because there is a ton of stuff going on in Bay Area sports, concluding today with the Warriors Rockets game 3. Back at Chase tonight, back at Chase for game 4 on Monday night. Series tied at a game apiece. We got Giants baseball on KNBR afternoon game today. Giants playing game 2 against the Rangers. And then, of course, the NFL draft is ongoing with the rapid fire rounds 4 through 7 here today, as the entire draft is going to take place in between game 2 and game 3 of this NBA playoff series between the Warriors and the Rockets. But we're going to talk about that. John Dickinson, Kyle Haar here as well. And we're just going to give you an hour-long preview, basically, of game 3. We'll talk about the first couple of games of this series. Of course, all attention on Jimmy Butler, and officially listed as questionable, no structural damage, all of this. Basically a deep butt bruise is what it amounts to, Kyle. But it's sounding like Jimmy Butler is going to be able to play in this game tonight at Chase. If he doesn't, I think the Warriors are in a world of trouble, not only tonight, but for the remainder of this series. But at least now, as we sit, 8.5, I guess 9.5 hours away from tip-off, or is it 7.5 hours? 7.5 hours away from tip-off. I gotta get my math right here.
You were in Houston for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. It's when you start mixing in multiple time zones, it gets a little confusing. But it's trending toward Jimmy Butler being able to play. I think if Jimmy Butler can be 75 to 80% of what he normally is, and that's including what he had been playoff Jimmy in the Clipper game to end the regular season, the Grizzlies game in the play-in tournament, and game 1 of the playoff series against the Rockets. If he can be about 75 to 80% of that for the next 2 games, I'll even just say 75. If he can be 75% of the Jimmy Butler that we've come to know here toward the end of the season, I think that's good enough for the Warriors to win 2 home games. And I think if the Warriors can win 2 home games, then I think they're going to win the series, likely in 6. Likely in 6. I know, going back to Houston, when it's a game that you don't need, sometimes there's a tendency, and I think the Warriors are going to be in play here if they win the next 2. Game 5 could be one they just go and they'll play it out, but if they get down early, they may just pack it in because of the back and forth nature of every other day and the rest and all of that. Kind of like we saw them do a couple of years ago in Memphis after they got up 3-1 in that series. So a similar layout for the Warriors and Rockets in this series as there was in that series, where the Warriors went in and took game 1. Game 2 obviously was close. The Grizzlies won, and then the Warriors just won all the home games and got blown out in the one game back in Memphis in game 5. But again, Jimmy Butler, Kyle, let's just start there. It's trending toward him playing. They need him. And I think when you look at we knew this, because we watched a team in the lead up to the trade deadline. And I think maybe because the Warriors had some success against the Rockets in games where Steph Curry didn't play, like this is the freaking playoffs. And while the Rockets are challenged in many ways, I think offensively, and we've seen it, they got a big game from Jalen Green in game 2, but the Rockets are still a damn good team and an excellent defensive team. And I think the whole winning without Steph and that was regular season shit. That's not happening. And nobody should believe that that's going to happen for the Warriors in these playoff series if they're not at full strength. I go back to, you take Jimmy Butler off this team and now they are just a worse version of the team that they were before the trade deadline, because it's really twofold now. It's, you don't have Andrew Wiggins because he went in the trade, and you really don't have a Jonathan Kuminga that you can count on. That doesn't mean he won't maybe wind up in. Kuminga at this point has found money. We'll set the Kuminga part aside for now, but I think he really, for the remainder of this series, he might get in there again and play well for a stretch or play well for a game. I would never completely rule that out. Although I think if Jimmy Butler plays, Jonathan Kuminga is going to go back to not playing probably at all for this series, given what we saw from him in game 2. But it's those two aspects of the team, that and they weren't a good team even then when Kuminga was playing a lot and they didn't have Jimmy Butler and Andrew Wiggins was obviously on the team instead of Jimmy Butler. So let's not get it twisted. I know there's in some ways, I think a confidence level that might be a little too high at the Warriors' ability to just win this series, despite the fact that Jimmy Butler may have to miss a game. I don't think it would be 2 at this point, but I don't see it that way at all. To me, it's as simple as if Jimmy Butler can play the remainder of the series 75%, I think the Warriors win. I think if Jimmy has to miss a game or 2, I think the Warriors are going to end up losing this series.
Yeah, when the initial injury report came out and Shams put it out that it was just a deep pelvic contusion, I was like, my initial thought was like, okay, I think if Jimmy is like 70, in that 70 to 80%, he's going to play. And I think Jimmy Butler is also a player that I would not bet on not playing. I think he's just that kind of guy. And JD, what did you make of, I think Jimmy Butler's agent texted Mark Spears, pray for the bear. What did that mean? I took it in a good way.
Yeah. I don't know. Look, I don't know the context of the maybe the sense of humor in play there. But yeah, I think it's a serious amount of pain. That's the part that would be the main way. It's yeah, okay. It's a bruised ass again, basically, to use the term that's kind of made everybody laugh because we're all basically 12-year-olds at heart here. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt like hell, and that doesn't mean that it's going to make you're going to be able to move around the way that you need to move around to be a dominant player in the NBA going up against elite defense and an athletic elite defense at that. So I think that's the part that kind of stood out to me is like, let's just not expect, even if he can play, that he's not going to be compromised significantly. And I think this may very well be, Kyle, a situation where you're going to get more of the regular season Jimmy Butler in the next couple of games as he continues to heal. And we'll see if he has to wear a butt pad like Steph had to wear a butt pad. This thing does heal over time and pretty quickly, I think, a week or 2. Obviously you're in the playoffs now. So, 2 weeks from today, you're looking at the middle of the next series. If the Warriors are fortunate enough to be in that position, they'd be in game 3 or game 4 of the next series against Minnesota or the Lakers, assuming they win this series, of course. So 2 weeks is a long time in terms of games missed in the playoff series and how everything looks. But I think it goes back to the confidence level that the Warriors can win with a 75% Jimmy Butler. And that may mean more like the Warriors getting regular season Jimmy Butler, which means facilitator, extra passer. It basically means Podziemski, Moody, and Quentin Post, because those were the 3 that really did it, and maybe a little bit of Buddy Hield, are going to have to hit shots, I think. And I think, I get your take on this, and we appreciate everybody watching on YouTube and Twitch and all of that here on Just Dubs, our Game 3 preview here with Game 3 tonight at Chase Center. To me, it comes down to, can those guys make shots at home a couple of times? And I think they're more apt to make shots at home than they would be if the next 2 games, say, we're going to be in Houston and the thing was tied at a game apiece because the Warriors couldn't win. So I think that the structure of the series in that vein, Kyle, works to the Warriors' favor. But I think if the Warriors are going to have to win with regular season Jimmy Butler, we know what that means. It means Pods with the food poisoning in game 2. He was a complete non-factor. That, I think, hurt the Warriors not as much as not having Jimmy. The game was basically over in game 2 when Jimmy Butler went out, although the Warriors did hang around a couple of times, and it felt like they might have had the ability to even really make it a close game and make the Rockets sweat it out. That was kind of the big takeaway for me. We'll get to that coming up here. But just your take on, can the Warriors win with 75% Jimmy Butler and the importance of Podziemski, Moody, and I think Quentin Post, who didn't really hit threes early in game 2, but as the game went on, it seemed like he worked his way a little bit into the series. And those are the kinds of things that can happen in games that are blowouts or games where a team is losing. You can have a player get comfortable, and it might mean that he plays better. I mean, you were hoping it would happen with Kuminga, and maybe it did. Maybe he just knocked all the rust off, and he would be better if given the opportunity. But I think Quentin Post is probably in a better place moving forward in this series than he was before, because he was able to get, I think, comfortable in the environment with the physicality and the quicker movements and the need to get a shot off in a certain way, to where maybe he had been a little bit overwhelmed by it the first game and a half.
Yeah, I think we're going to see regular season Jimmy Butler in the fact that he's going to try to get the role players going. And I also think this injury, I don't think we're going to see Jimmy Butler go in the paint and put up 25 shots, but he's still going to be aggressive. I don't think he's not going to be aggressive, but I think, there are going to be more times than not where he's just going to pass out, and he's a smart player. He knows his body, and he's going to be cautious of that. And I think someone mentioned it in the chat a couple games ago that, the role players just frankly play better at home. And I think Moses Moody and Pods specifically need to hunt for their shot early. And if they can get going, that would be a huge boost for the Dubs, because they've really been lacking that third scoring option. And if Jimmy Butler is going to be 75%, and he's not going to give you playoff Jimmy from what we saw in game 1, you're going to need someone else to score more than 15 points.
Yeah, I think without question, you're going to need that. And here's the other thing, and I touched on this a little bit. The Warriors' ability to win this series is probably going to rely on them either winning all their home games or winning game 7 on the road. Like that's just the way this thing is set up. And I think especially the case now with the Jimmy Butler, question mark in terms of the injury. And I really think to win the series, the Warriors are going to have to run the table now and at home, and just win tonight. You put a little bit of pressure on the Rockets, because to me, I always believe that the team that loses the home court advantage, and let's be honest, because of the Jimmy Butler injury, I think we're talking a lot more about how much the Warriors are in trouble in this series because of that, which is an obvious and accurate point. But here's the thing, Kyle. The Warriors did go in and split and take home court advantage from the Rockets by winning game 1. So they do not have to win another game in Houston for the remainder of this series, as long as they win all of their home games. And I think the team that loses the home court advantage in the first 2, the Rockets in this case, I think the longer it takes to get that game back, the more the pressure mounts. And so I think in a lot of ways, game 3 is the Rockets' best chance, especially with the questionable Jimmy Butler and questionable in terms of how effective he will be able to be. To me, if the Warriors get tonight, there's more pressure on the Rockets to get Monday night. And then if the Warriors get Monday night, there's a ton of pressure, obviously, on the Rockets to just keep it alive. There's no pressure on the Warriors to go into Houston and even give a damn about that game, knowing that they've got game 6 in their back pocket back at Chase. But the Rockets at that point also know that they're going to have to play an elimination game on the road in game 6 in that scenario. And so I think the Warriors' ability to get it to that point is the pathway for them to win the series. Can they win a game 7? Sure, I think they can win a game 7, but to me, there's too many things that can happen between now and game 7 that, could continue to be, another injury to a key player, or somebody else banged up and playing significantly less than 100% or less than 90%. I think that's something that would be concerning. So I think the pathway is right there in front of the Warriors. I think the Rockets, I'll be honest, I don't think they totally know the environment that they're going to be in tonight. I think I go back to the game 3 weeks ago. The game 3 weeks ago was, I mean, it was as loud and edgy in shape. I mean, it was louder than even the Denver game. It was like, it's a unique deal because the Warrior fans they hate the Rockets and they hate Dylan Brooks. And now obviously these guys are playoff level villains again, but it's the Rockets jersey. It's the way that the Rockets play. But it's also not a team like the Lakers that has a bunch of their fans in every building. And it's not a team like, it's just so it's mostly like, you're not going to have the smattering of Rockets fans cheering, every time Jalen Green hits a jumper. Like, it just doesn't happen. So it's a unique environment when it comes to like, it's going to be 95% or more Warrior fans, and they're going to be pissed off about the way that the Rockets play in general. And this is still the Rockets, and they have some vets, Dylan Brooks among them, Van Vliet, been in a lot of environments. The first road playoff game for a young team going through it, I think is an adjustment. And I think the Warriors have the ability to get on them from the jump tonight. Again, assuming Jimmy Butler can play and be effective and they can hit some shots. And I think they have the ability to make it a real uphill climb for Houston all night long. And that might be the way you get tonight, just because they're not used to the road playoff environment because they have so many young players on their team.
Well, now you add another playoff villain in Amen Thompson injuring Jimmy Butler. And we don't need to go into whether that play was dirty or not. We already did that the entire week. But yeah, I mean, yeah, between Amen Thompson and Dylan Brooks, it's like having two Draymonds going into Houston.
I'm going to say it again, Kyle. No, I'm going to stop you, Kyle. I apologize. I'll let you continue. Go. I do. And that's been a huge debate in the time since we did Dubs OT after game 2. I don't think Amen Thompson's a dirty player. I do think, and I'm in the minority, I do think that was a dirty play. And was it an intentional play? No, I don't think it was an intentional play, but I do think, and I do think when you play as wound up as the Rockets play, throwing your body around without care, that leads to some unintentional dirty plays. And I think when the officials allow the game to get out of control the way that they did, and the Rockets play that way normally, it just is another. It just leads to that being more likely to happen. Guys just throwing their body into people. There was a lot of throwing your body into people. Throwing your body, diving at Steph Curry's legs, basically a lot. That kind of thing. And I think the Rockets are not necessarily doing it with the intent to injure. I would not say that, but I do think they do it with the, hey, whatever happens. We're just playing physical, throwing our bodies around. That's how we play. Well, when you play that way, you're more apt to maybe injure somebody. So, and I don't think they care, to be perfectly honest. I don't think they care if they do. They would never admit this. I also think they kind of know that that's their one pathway to win the series above all others, is to maybe inadvertently take somebody out.
Well, and then that play where it wasn't called a foul when GP2 is driving in the lane and he got pushed from behind by freaking Dylan Brooks. I think I forget who was on. I think it was Mark Spears, but he was like, he thought that play was dirtier than the Amen Thompson play, just because it reminded him so much of 2022 in the playoffs when Dylan Brooks took out undercutted GP2 in the playoffs, and now GP2 is questionable for tonight. But no, yeah, I think, this is a young team coming into a raucous crowd, and we'll see. I think the Warriors need to hone in on Jalen Green, because you can't have Jalen Green or Alperen Şengün go for 30 or more points in this game.
Well, and that's it. I mean, it's really Jalen Green. I mean, if you separate the Jimmy Butler injury and the physicality and all of that, game 1 to game 2, what was the biggest difference for the Rockets? Well, they made 3-pointers in game 2, but who really made 3-pointers in game 2? It's Jalen Green. Jalen Green was awesome in game 2. And the Rockets don't really have a secondary scorer consistently. They have Şengün, and he can get his, but who is the other? They need others to hit shots. Is it going to be Brooks? Is it going to be Van Vliet hitting open threes? Is Amen Thompson going to get out in transition and do some things? Jalen Green is the guy that I think they would like it to be, but there are just a lot of games, and I think one of the other key points as to how this series is going to play out is Jalen Green going to be the guy that we saw in game 2 multiple more times in this series, or is he going to be the guy we saw in game 1 multiple times? And maybe the answer is both, but I just think, Jalen Green has the ability to do both. He has the ability to play as well as he did in game 2. He also has the ability to play as terribly as he did in game 1. I'm thinking, the Warriors have they've held their own, I think, against Şengün. They're daring others to hit shots on the Rocket side. I also think, though, the Warriors have to do a little bit of a better job. Two things. One thing, defensively, they have to do a little bit of a better job contesting the three to force the mid-range. I feel like you don't want guys to feel like they can drive a closeout and get all the way to the rim and be able to finish. But I do think what you want to do is be able to have a few more of those plays where, you're letting the guys that you don't think can beat you shoot from the outside. And I think Jalen Green is one of those, and he beat them with it. But what you want is to close enough to where you can, it's a contested enough three to where they look to drive, but then your rotation is on point to where you're not allowing somebody to get to the basket, and you're basically forcing a bunch of mid-range pull-ups at that point. So I think that's a big part of it from the Warriors standpoint defensively, where I think they have to be better. They do have to be better in terms of the rebounding. I mean, they really have to gang rebound. I think that's something at home that should get better as well. I think when to me, it's easier you get the juice from the crowd, and you should be able to fly around and really just get on the boards.
I also think those 50-50 balls that it seems like the Warriors have been losing, even going to the last few games in the regular season, like that Clipper game that they've been losing. Like I feel like those 50-50 balls will tilt more in favor of the Warriors with the home crowd.
It should, but you still have to go and hustle. And
right.
I think that's the part that is the most important as far as, so that's defensively for the Warriors. Offensively, I think the one thing, and the Warriors never really got a chance to do it because Jimmy went out in game 2. And look, I thought game 2 was setting up almost identically to game 1 at the moment in which Jimmy came out. The Rockets were all wound up. I think they were more wound up clearly in game 2 than they were even in game 1. And they had the lead early, and the crowd was into it in Houston early. And the game had not quite settled yet. And when the game settled, the Warriors took control. Before the game could settle, Jimmy Butler was out, and it basically was over. And the Warriors still made some runs and had a chance maybe to make it a close game and steal it before the Rockets repeatedly, a lot of big Jalen Green shots, but repeatedly were able to put the game away in those scenarios. But I think for the Warriors offensively, it has to be shot making, of course. Podziemski, Moody, Quentin Post. They have to realize that the Rockets do not have rim protection. I was watching the Laker game last night, the Laker Timberwolves game, and Jaden McDaniels goes off. The Timberwolves win to go up 2-1 on the Lakers. And Jaden McDaniels was like, hey, I knew that the Lakers don't have rim protection, and that I could basically drive and get all the way to the basket and be able to finish. The Rockets don't have rim protection. It's not, excuse me, it's not Sengun. It's not Adams. It's, if anything, it's their wing players that get back and try to block shots, either one-on-one or maybe help. Amen Thompson or somebody like that's going to come back and block a shot. Jabari Smith, somebody like that. But I think the Warriors have to be a little bit more confident in their ability to drive the overplay and get all the way to the bucket, because I think if they start to do that, it will really open up the ball movement at that point. It'll really get the Rockets defense off the mark in terms of kind of being in scramble mode. And look, they're still athletic enough to be able to defend well enough to win the game or hang in the game. But I think the Warriors have to, and Steph, I think, can do it. He did it in game 1, never really got off the ground with it in game 2. But I think others have the ability. Pajemski can do it. I think, Moses Moody even can do it a little bit. Draymond's got to do it. I think Draymond's settling for the 3 ball a little bit, maybe too much. Like, look to drive knowing that they aren't intimidating in the paint. Kuminga, if he gets an opportunity to play, can do it and finish. I mean, that was the most frustrating. Well, there were a lot of frustrating parts about Kuminga, but the fact that he immediately, he hit 2 threes. Okay. He was terrible otherwise. And he got downhill and drove and he's missing layups. And it was just awful. But he showed that there's an ability to get to the basket against them. And again, the misses for him were just shit shots. I mean, basically, just terrible finishes, unchallenged really on most of them. He just, going too quick or, out of whack, whatever, rusty, whatever, if you want to put an excuse on it, we can put an excuse on it. It was terrible, but it shows that you do have the ability to get to the cup on these guys if you put your head down and go. And I think the fact that Kuminga was able to do it is not necessarily an indicator that Kuminga needs to be out there more to try to do it, but it's an indicator that others who are on the court and more trusted by Steve Kerr should have the ability to look to do it. And I think that's how you can get the Rockets in a little bit more of a scramble mode, Kyle.
And that's where maybe a 75% or a regular season Jimmy Butler comes into play, because he's someone that can easily attack the rim and look to find the open man that he's so good at doing.
No, I think that's spot on. I mean, I think Jimmy, although he doesn't get all the way to the rim when he's in that regular season Jimmy Butler mode, it's much more kickouts and setups. Can he get to the free throw line? I mean, that's the other thing. I think when we've seen the regular season Jimmy Butler, he's shown that ability to get to the free throw line a lot. And I think that's going to be important as well. All right, it's John Dickinson and Kyle Harr here, are Just Dubs. Warriors Game 3 preview, Warriors and Rockets tonight. Let's do some Kyle's clicks and dive into the YouTube chat. We're going to go till about 11, keep it short here as we set everything up at a busy day on KNBR, obviously with the Giants game, and we're all keeping tabs on the final few rounds of the NFL draft here on this Saturday. But tonight, 5:30, and of course, Dubs OT tonight from Harmonic Brewing in Thrive City. We're back at Harmonic. Stop by and say hi if you're coming to the game. After the game, Greg Silver is going to stop by and join me after the game as well. So we're looking forward to all of that, as we'll be breaking down Game 3 like only we do here on the Sports Leader. Joke's on you, JD. What happens if the Warriors think like you do and their typical pre-Butler play down to their competition? I have a sneaky suspicion they'll be down in the first quarter. They need to this is the freaking playoffs. There's no play down to your competition. The Rockets had a better regular season than you did. I get it. We all think the Warriors with Jimmy Butler are a better team, and they are a better team than the Rockets. I think the Warriors would have won more than 52 games had they had Jimmy for the entire season. They were clearly on that kind of pace. So that's not a disrespectful comment to the Rockets. I mean, they earned where they are, but the Warrior, but the Rockets are not a bunch of chumps here that can't play. And so I think you can't have that be the mentality. And if that's the mentality that they can, I don't see how they could have a compromised Jimmy Butler after losing game 2, knowing that they have home court advantage now and have to basically win the 3 home. Like, I just don't see the Warriors playing down to the competition like it's the regular season. Like, and if they do, shame on them. And if it costs them a game tonight, that costs them a series, then that's on them. And they're going to have to be accountable for that. Like, that to me is just unacceptable. I mean, you can be down because maybe you're not hitting shots or they are hitting shots. I mean, that can happen. But you can't be down because you're not wound up and intense and flying around and playing the game the right way. Like, the Warriors should get the lift early in game 3 and game 4 that the Rockets got in game 1 and game 2. It should be the other way. And the Rockets should be a little bit, maybe not as much in game 4, but in game 3, the Rockets should be a little bit, I don't want to say tight, but they should just be a little bit overwhelmed at road playoff game for the first time as a group. Again, not the first time this season, but road playoff game for the first time, period, for Şengün and Amen Thompson and Jabari Smith and all the young guys. Now, it doesn't apply to Van Vliet and it doesn't apply to Brooks and it doesn't apply to Adams and all of that, but there are enough. Jalen Green, road game in the playoffs for the first time. The Warriors have an edge there and they need to take advantage of it. And if they can't take advantage of it, then that's trouble. Like, that's a sign that maybe this team isn't going to be good enough to win this series with a somewhat compromised but available to play Jimmy Butler. Good way to get us going here in the chat. Joke's on you, Joe Schmo. Jalen Green, a talent and still needs to be regulated. Go at him hard. Yeah, I no doubt. Attack Jalen Green. Jalen Green really ramped up his defense in game 2. He's not known for that. I also think the officials are going to be worth keeping an eye on tonight. I think we're going to see a lot of foul calls early in the game. I think this is going to be the game where they try to get it under control, and everybody's got a foul early, and everybody's got a couple of fouls maybe in the by the end of the first half, because I think there's going to be, if there wasn't already, and there should have been a discussion about the 5 games that these two teams played in the regular season. The way that the first 2 games have been officiated, I think really both of them were allowed to be somewhat out of control, especially game 2. But make Jalen Green defend and dare Jalen Green to continue to make threes on the other end. I think the Warriors, if they play poised, I think the Rockets are going to find themselves in foul trouble tonight. I think the Rockets are going to be the team that's going to find themselves in, complaining to the officials more than kind of like we've seen the Warriors have been. I mean, both teams have been doing it. The Warriors have been the team, I think, more that's been complaining to the officials in the first couple of games of this series. I think that's going to flip tonight. I think the Rockets are going to be the frustrated team as long as the Warriors come out and play with poise early in the game and don't allow the Rockets' cow to get comfortable.
And we mentioned how Guy Santos will come into the game for his 5 minutes and pick up like 4 fouls. But I think the Rockets have like 3 or 4 of those guys that could pick up 3 or 4 fouls within a 5-6 minute span. I mean, we saw Amen Thompson do that. What was that, game 1? No, the games are.
Well, everybody had 3 in game 2, which was interesting because it felt like there were nobody.
Yeah.
It felt like nobody. It felt like they weren't calling any fouls, but then you looked up and it kind of looked like everybody had 3 fouls. It was
right. But and then yeah, the Warriors had to play some guys that they didn't expect to play, and really that foul trouble didn't matter. So yeah, it's how can you hurt the Rockets and when they get into foul trouble, and especially if you're in the bonus early. You mentioned JD, Jimmy Butler getting to the free throw line. If the Warriors can get the Rockets into foul trouble early and get into the bonus early, that's something I would look for Jimmy Butler to pick up some of those fouls on the Rockets and to get some easy points at the line.
Looking at the officials for tonight, and I also look at the way things set up for future series. 4 games today. In the NBA, Cleveland and Miami, OKC and Memphis are playing game 4, Cleveland, Miami game 3. And then you got the Warriors and the Rockets game 3. Denver and the Clippers are playing game 4 of their series tonight down in Inglewood. I'm looking at the way this thing is setting up. And tonight, this evening will be James Williams, Kevin Scott, and Curtis Blair. There is an alternate official in case somebody gets sick or has an injury. JB DeRosa is the alternate official that'll be only called upon if needed. Again, if Kevin Scott or one of these guys gets food poisoning, then JB DeRosa gets thrown in as the third official. They have that backup in play in the playoffs. I'm also looking at Denver and the Clippers because we have not seen Zach Zarba in this series. And he is officiating the game tonight in Inglewood. I would imagine Zach Zarba is going to be officiating game 4 at Chase on Monday night with maybe another member of that crew. And again, it's all-star crews in the playoffs. But I think that's going to be something to keep an eye on as this series goes on. As it relates to what the officials are allowing to let go. Let's continue in the chat here. Florida Dubs fan, the others are due to have a good game tonight. We are at home, so they should play better. Do not play Buddy in extended minutes. I think Buddy is going to get a shot, almost normal rotation early, because you need to see, again, role player at home. Can he hit shots? If Buddy Hield can hit 4 or 5 threes, not saying he will, not saying you can expect it, but you have to give him an opportunity maybe to be hot. And here's the other thing we always say. There aren't other options. When you lose Podziemski, in addition to Jimmy Butler, you basically are losing Podziemski's the Warriors' 4th best player, right? Like, he's their 4th best player. It's Steph, Jimmy, Draymond. Obviously, Draymond's not a scorer. Podziemski is their 4th best player. So, when you lose him, you lose some ball handling and some creativity, creatability basically in the offense. But you also lose one of your 4 ball handlers. They have 4 ball handlers, and Podziemski's one of them. Draymond, Steph, Jimmy. So point being, he gets an opportunity to play through maybe not playing well to a greater extent than others would. I also think it's the case for Buddy Hield in that they don't have another shooter off the bench. Quentin Post, but he's the center, so we know where he's gonna play. So Quentin Post isn't taking Buddy Hield minutes, and it's kind of the same thing with Kuminga. There was a lot of, I think, in the early part of the series, not so much after Kuminga didn't play well in game 2, but it's, play Kuminga over Hield. Well, they don't play the same position. Kuminga's playing the 4, Buddy's playing the 2. It's just that's not really an option
one
either.
One can shoot, one can't.
Well, yeah, although Kuminga did hit the 2 threes. That was the one thing he did well. The 2 Kuminga always does that too, where just when you completely write him off to he's never going to make a 3 again, then he'll make a couple. And it's almost maddening because, as I've said a lot, he would much rather shoot jumpers, I think, than get to the bucket, which I think is one of the frustrating, because he's better, obviously, at getting to the bucket, though his finishing numbers pretty gross. His overall finishing numbers are not great. And a lot of that was on display in the game on Wednesday night in Houston. But yeah, the others have to play well. What's Pod's status for tonight? Should be good to go. For Brandon Podziemski. I'm looking also here, and I can't get you the most recent injury report, Kyle. If I just click over, here it is, the one that dropped here within the last 10 minutes. and they update him hourly. Yeah. So Steph is on the injury report, right thumb, but he's playing. Jimmy questionable, left pelvic contusion. Gary Payton questionable, right shoulder strain. So that's one. Again, I would imagine GP would be able to play, but that's the injury report there. And then nothing of consequence for the Rockets. Jock Landale and Jayshawn Tate are guys that aren't normally in the Rockets rotation anyway. So they are the two that are out. Yeah, for those that are just joining us here in the chat, it does sound as if Jimmy Butler is going to be able to play tonight, but it also sounds as if he's going to be compromised and significantly, I don't want to say significantly less than 100%, but I think the hope, if you're a Warrior fan, is that he can be somewhere in the 75 to 80% range for this game.
Do you think this affects his minutes at all? Like, do you think he's going to get north of 40 minutes, or is Kerr gonna keep it under 40 in that like 35 to 40 range?
Yeah, I think it's feel it out. I do think Steve has to start tonight. Tonight, he has to start kind of limiting minutes tonight a little bit. Like tonight is the first two games you really could play for the long haul. I don't think you can play for the long haul as much because the games are going to be every other day. And the travel involved. So if you're looking to cut corners, a couple minutes here, a couple minutes there, I do think Steve's going to try to do that as the series goes on. It's unfortunate that they didn't get to play Jimmy a ton in game 2 because of the injury on a game where they could have played everybody. I thought he kept Steph in a lot longer than I would have expected on Wednesday night.
Yeah.
To try to maybe get an opportunity to steal it. I know Steph is the kind of guy that he doesn't like almost tapping out when it's, when shit's bad, basically. But I think that they could have probably done that a little sooner. But again, the 2 days off, I don't think it matters. You're always concerned about the cumulative effect, though, of the minutes. And so I do think, that you look at Steph in game 1, if he plays 5 fewer minutes in game 1, do the Warriors lose the game? And so I think that is a balance Steve's going to have to find. And maybe it is go all in on game 3 and game 4. And if you get those games, you can dial it back a little bit in game 5, knowing that you have game 6 in your back pocket if game 5 gets out of hand on you. So, but to answer the question more directly, I do think Jimmy, because of the injury, may not be able to play as many minutes. And I do think because of the nature of this series, Steph and Jimmy specifically, along with Draymond, are maybe going to have to start playing a couple fewer minutes to make up for the fact that it is every other day here between now and potentially a week from tomorrow.
Okay. No, yeah. I was thinking you kind of feel it out with Jimmy. I mean, Jimmy's a bulldog. He's a tough SOB. So he's always going to say that he's good to go and good to keep playing. But yeah, I think like if I were to give a prediction right now, I would say under 40. But yeah,
I think it's under 40. I definitely, I think it's under 40 for both of them. It's under 40 for both of them. Florida Dubs fan, we need to make them feel us tonight. Don't expect to get calls. Don't expect the ref to bail you out. Just go up strong. Stop chucking threes. Listen to Jimmy and get the ball to the rim. Getting the ball to the rim is important, but you have to make the right basketball play. And if there are open threes, then those threes need to be taken. And part of the way the Warriors they got to hit threes at home. If you're not going to hit threes at home, then forget about it.
You're not going to hit threes on the road. Yeah.
If you're not going to hit threes at home, you're not going to win the series. I mean, that's just, and we know the Warriors have the ability to beat the Rockets scoring under 100. Like, we know that, but you got to make some threes. You got to at least, have the ability to make some timely threes, but getting the ball to the rim is important. It's definitely important.
I just want to add one more thing here on Dubs fan comment. I think, yeah, you need to make them feel you tonight, but in a greater sense, the defense has to be better. I think you gotta continue to hold the Rockets under 100 points. I mean, Jalen Green and Alperen Şengün, they're fine players, and they have to go to them. The Rockets do, but they would be on the Warriors. They would be the third scoring option. So you got to shut down at least one of those guys. Take a look back in game one. Alperen Şengün, he had a good game, but no one else was effective.
No, and I think that is much more the template. I feel like as you look at, we've seen two games, right? We've seen the one game that the Warriors won and how that looks. We saw the game the Rockets won and how that looked. I do think there is the reason for some optimism. What do you make of the fact that the Warriors were kind of hanging around at different points, even without Jimmy Butler, and even though the Rockets were really in a lot of ways taking it to them? I think the Warriors, it felt like they were a bucket or two away, like 3 or 4 different times from really making the Rockets sweat it out. It never quite got to that point. But, I mean, do you take anything positively away there?
I do, and I think that's why I wasn't too down on the loss. I mean, yeah, the Jimmy Butler injury aside, but from the loss itself, I wasn't too down on it because I was like, well, shit, if we're hanging around with Pat Spencer and Steph Curry as our two primary ball handlers, and we got Guy Santos running around out there, and Kuminga, who I don't know if he expected to play that game or not. I mean, if we're running around with this group and hanging in there, and yeah, there were a couple times where I think they brought it down to 11 a few times late in the game, and it was like, oh man, if Steph Curry just goes on one of those runs, he didn't, but it gave me some good optimism going into this game because we were basically out 2 starters early in the game, and yeah, it's just like, well, if we had those 2 starters, it feels like we would have won the game,
Yeah, so I think that's something sort of to file away. Again, Warriors used a little bit of zone defense at times in game 2, and were effective against that. The Warriors also played their bigs more in game 2, and that I think was part of Jalen Green's ability to kind of get going. Is the fact that there was much more Jalen Green going up against post, Jalen Green going up against Kevon Looney. And I think as much as the size for the Rockets is an issue, I still think, and as much as I think the Warriors need Quentin Post to be able to play some minutes and hit some shots, I do think the Warriors' ability to play smaller in this series and be effective playing smaller is the way that they are going to have the most success. You mentioned Pat Spencer real quick. Pat Spencer probably should have played in the second half. In the rotation. I get that a part of that was Pods being sick there at the beginning of the second quarter. Pat Spencer was ready to go and unafraid. And look, he's far from a difference maker, but I would put Pat Spencer in the category of, you know what? If you're not getting it from Buddy Hield, like, to me, that was something you kind of found. Like, Pat Spencer was unafraid and attacked. He kind of did what Kuminga should be doing, and only was able to finish at 6-1. It was, I mean, Pat Spencer, if there was one guy, I think Moody should probably be playing a little more too than he did. But if there was one guy, like, you always learn things as series go on. And sometimes it's a one-off, right? Sometimes it's a guy that another team's not expecting, the Lonnie Walker thing, and it only will work for the one game. So like now Pat Spencer is on the scouting report from a point of, if Kerr does put him in the game, I guarantee you the Rockets did spend 5 minutes with, if they play Pat Spencer, this is what we're going to do to Pat Spencer. They spent some time on it. So maybe that's not going to be as effective as it was in game 2, when it was basically a surprise sub due to Podziemski being sick and not being able to play the normal rotation. But to me, when you're looking at role players at home, like Pat Spencer, somebody Steve could throw in the game tonight or on Monday. Seriously.
Yeah, he's definitely a card that you want to keep in your sleeve or your back pocket to maybe pull out. Yeah, hell, he played better than some guys that get rotational
Buddy,
minutes.
even Buddy, like if you're not going to play Buddy, Pat Spencer at least is another guard that you can maybe put out there.
And Pat Spencer, I would trust him bringing the ball up or having the ball in his hands and dribbling and playmaking than Buddy Hield. But Buddy Hield, sometimes when he dribbles, it's like, no. I don't know where this looks like a turnover.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think, the other part of this thing is you look at it, moving forward, we do need to talk a little bit about Kuminga. I know we have at different points. I don't think there should be any excuses for Kuminga not being ready to play. I mean, Kuminga was awful on Wednesday night. I don't think there should be any excuses. He looked disinterested. He came in the game kind of laughing, like, oh, now they need me. Like, now they need me, but you didn't need me before, but now you need me. And I was really put off by the whole thing. To say that they need him again, if Jimmy can't go or Jimmy's minutes are limited, especially with the GP2 injury, like Kuminga may get an opportunity. The one thing I will say positively, typically when Kuminga doesn't play, and I put this out on social media, I think, and I said it a couple times Wednesday, typically when Kuminga doesn't play and he feels slighted and then he gets an opportunity to play, he stinks the first game or two back sometimes, but then he does start to play better. And you even see it in individual games with Kuminga where he'll come in and his first shift is terrible. And then his second shift, he's more locked in and more comfortable on the court. Like he'll take a couple bad shots in the first, he'll miss a layup, and then he'll get that second shift, and all of a sudden he's getting fouled, he's finishing better. So I think there is an element to that, but yeah, I didn't love some of the comments. I didn't love some of the comments even post game. He always kind of plays the victim, which I think is bullshit. It's always like, I try not to think about why this is being done to me kind of thing. Like, bro, you ain't the victim. It's your four, and you can't figure out how to be a role player, and you're clearly not good enough to be more than a role player on this team. So, I'm not saying he can't. To me, if I'm Steve Kerr, I'll just be honest. If I'm Steve Kerr, I ain't playing him unless it's emergency. I ain't playing him unless it's Jimmy can't go, and then you have to play him. Then you're at the mercy of, does he give you something? And if he gives you something, great. But let's also say this. I mean, if he gives him something, it is not go back and say he should have been playing. Like that is like, we ain't having that conversation at all. Erwin Kwong, Kuminga more worried about his game than winning. I think that's been the case. I've said as much. Woodpit 420, tell him to rebound and go to the hole or he's out of the game. Rebounding is the part. He tried to go to the hole, but you got to go to the hole and finish. Woodpit 420. But yeah, the rebounding and the hustle. The rebounding and the hustle and the intensity were not there. It was low motor Kuminga other than looking to score, and he wasn't really good at looking to score. That was the part that really frustrated me. It was low motor. It was, oh, they need me now. Yeah, I'm just going to kind of get out there and do my little left-handed dribble, spin, flail, miss the layup off the top of the backboard, slot.
Ask for a foul, yeah. Settle for the pull-up three-pointer.
Immediately go to the official like I'm getting screwed on calls. But yeah, no, he's got to hustle and play better. Andis, to me, anything the Warriors got from Kuminga or get from Kuminga is a bonus, even if Jimmy doesn't play. I think that's well said, Andis. It is. It's a bonus. He may have to play. Again, I don't. Yeah. But if it's the norm, we've seen enough now to know where if it's the normal rotation and Jimmy Butler is healthy enough to play pretty much normal minutes, minus maybe 3 to 5, then Kuminga ain't playing and Kuminga shouldn't play. Now, what we also have seen, though, is if Jimmy Butler can't play, or gets re-injured, then it's going to be a scenario where they're going to have to play him, and they're going to have to hope that they can get something from him. And if they can, then maybe it winds up helping them at that point. But yeah, Andis, I'm with you 100%. It's found money at this point. It's a complete bonus if Kuminga can give him a lift in any of these games. 4 years in, he can't figure out how to be a pro while playing with some of the best pros says a lot. I think, again, I don't like going down the road of the June-July thing, and I'm not going to mention Cam Johnson, although I guess technically I just did. But the one good thing to come of all of this Kuminga drama is I do think it's finally going to end in the offseason, regardless of who the player is that the Warriors get. Like he's proving in the biggest moments, and it really doesn't matter what he does. Like, unless he enters the rotation and all of a sudden is the guy that he was for like 6 games before he got hurt for like the next 20 and they win a title like that, or get to the finals like that. Like, aside from that, he's gone. And you know what? Him being gone is going to be a good thing, because we're not going to have to talk about, his fit and whether he's getting screwed and how much Steve Kerr hates him and how it's never his fault. And I mean, like, that part is just like adios. Like that part personally, I'm so refreshed that we're not going to have to deal with that, and that the Warriors are going to have an ability to move forward. You can maybe expect some rust with JK after not playing a few games, is understandable, but his disinterested attitude is inexcusable. No question. And that's the way it looked to me. It was part rust, but it was a lot more. Oh, you need me now? I'm just going to kind of do what I do and coast here in the playoffs in game 2. Again, the apologists will say that Kerr quit on him, and he doesn't owe them anything. But I'll tell you, and again, I post game, everybody said the right things, but everybody always says the right things about, like, Kerr wasn't going to flame him for not trying, and I give Draymond and Steph credit for not doing it too. I think because they're nice people. Yes, even Draymond. I know Draymond doesn't. He gets the people think he's not a nice guy. Like, I don't think Draymond's trying to flame the kid on on that kind of a stage. But the guys know. And again, I think they didn't want it to become a thing, but you could see it. You could see it. All right, final couple of minutes here. We can do a couple more chats. And that one little other thing on the Kuminga part, like, it's such bullshit that he's got to, like, know he's going to play a lot. Like, I've seen this whole, like, well, he wasn't ready because he didn't think he was going to play. It's like, you do not have to tell him he's going to play 25 minutes to get him to play hard. Like, that is it seems like that's a fact, but I'm sick of hearing people say that. I'm sick of people whose opinions I value giving Kuminga every freaking excuse in the book when they know ball better than that. Like, I'm sick of it. And it's still happening. Like, after every game, it's like, yeah, he played like shit, but rusty, and they still may need him. Like, really? Like, if that was any other player, it'd be like, don't play him ever again. But Kuminga gets that. Like, he ain't that good. Like, it's like, it's amazing to me. It really is.
Also, you're in the freaking NBA. You don't need your hand to be held every step of your career.
Year 4. Like, he wants to be treated like a star, even in how he's being benched. Like, what the? Anyway, that just, again, found money, I think, at this point, if they get anything out of him. Brandon Pajemski, I think, is also big. We talk a lot about Jimmy Butler, but his ability to be a factor, I think, in this one is going to be. It's going to be as important as Jimmy Butler. Pajemski's ability to be 80 to 100%, especially at home, I think, is as important as Jimmy Butler's ability to be at 75 to 80%, as we were talking about. So, all right, final minute. You want to do a few rapid fire chats?
Yeah.
I know there was a debate. Joe Schmo, Warriors need to flex some muscle today. I would agree with that. I know there was a debate about Amen Thompson. Look, Amen Thompson's not a dirty player. I'm not. Again, I think it was a dirty play. I don't think it was an intentional play. I don't think he's a dirty player, but I do think it was a dirty play. I will say that. Continuing on from Joe Schmo to Mickey D, need to be ahead at the end of the first. Yeah, you need to be ahead at the end of the first. I think what you want is one of these games. Honestly, if you're the Warriors, you can't. Look, beggars can't be choosers, but you want to win one of these games kind of going away. Like that. Like you want one of them's going to be close, nip and tuck down the stretch. Another one you hope to win, I think, a little bit more comfortably. JD, is it too much to ask for about 12 to 15 points each from Post and Buddy? I think they're going to – it might be a little high.
Post, yeah. I mean, Post can probably get there. He'll have some open looks today, especially if we're going to see some regular season Jimmy Butler. But, yeah. Oh, man, Buddy.
No, I don't know. If you get it, you're going to win the game. I just think it's more, can you get 12 to 15 from like Pajemski and Moody, and maybe in the 15 range from Buddy and Post combined, 15 to 17 range from Buddy and Post combined. I think that's important. A couple of more here, and then we'll end it.
I like this one.
Need to be ahead at the end of the fourth quarter. I like that one better. Yeah, I like that one better. That's a good call.
Pretty good strategy, yeah.
One more, Kyle. Give me the best you got here in the chat.
Let's see. We'll do, I guess, an insightful one. There you go.
Curry and Draymond can't start the game with turnovers. The game they won in Houston, there were minimum turnovers by those two. Yeah, it's always the best players. It always comes down to the best players. The role players at home are important, but it always comes down to the best players. And I agree with that as it relates to Steph Curry and Draymond Green. So good one there from EB here. All right, that'll do it for our Just Dubs YouTube only Game 3 preview. We will talk to you tonight. Again, if you're coming to the game, stop by Harmonic Brewing in Thrive City. We're going to be out there tonight. Immediately following the game, Greg Silver's going to stop by. We're all over Game 3. And in Game 4, Copes and Depop are going to be at Harmonic before the game, doing their show from 2 to 6. And then I will be on after the game Monday before heading back to Houston on Tuesday for Game 5. But, join us for that. No Giants game on Monday, so it'll be Copes and Depop with Dirty Work from 2 to 6 at Harmonic, and then I'll be on after the game with Dubs OT. For Kyle, I'm JD. Thanks to everyone in the chat, and we will talk to you tonight. KNBR, the sports leader.